gestalt language processing, speech motor chaining, and so much more. Those were just a couple of the topics that I attended live talks at ASHA 2024. ASHA 2024 was in Seattle, Washington. This is our largest conference for speech language pathologists. I am doing a debrief today. If you've never been to ASHA, if you thought about going to ASHA, if you're wondering what everyone's talking about, seeing all the photos on Instagram, LinkedIn. We are getting into it today. I hope you like this debrief. Let me know. I love to get your messages on Instagram, ABA Speech by Rose, or when you write a review for the podcast. It means so much. It lets everybody know that we are talking about important things here on the podcast. Without further ado, let's get into the episode.
You're listening to Autism Outreach Podcast, a podcast full of ready-to-use strategies to help those with autism strengthen their communication skills. Here's your host, Rose Griffin of ABA Speech, a speech therapist and board-certified behavior analyst who shares tips you can use in your next therapy session.
Welcome to the show. Today, I am breaking down ASHA 2024 for you. ASHA is our national speech therapy organization, and I went to the annual conference in Seattle, Washington this year, and I'm going to do a brief solo show to let you know about the good, bad, the ugly, everything in between. ASHA is a very large conference. There are about 14,000 to 20,000 attendees every single year of the conference, and you can tell where the conference is going to be 10 years from now. That is how big of a production this particular conference is. I went to my first ASHA conference when it was in Los Angeles. It was a solo mission, as most of my things here at ABA Speech are, and it's a big deal to go to these conferences and meet people and learn and go to the exhibit hall. There's just a lot that goes into attending an ASHA conference. And this particular conference, I attended. I just attended. I did not give a talk. I did not get a booth. I was there to really kind of network and learn. I am licensed in Washington State and had never been to Washington State. We provide a really cool service to ABA providers in Washington State. We provide teletherapy. We work with 6 clinics. We have 6 different speech therapy contractors, and Washington State has a cool program where the kids, if they qualify, get 12 weeks of ABA, Applied Behavior Analysis, and 12 weeks of speech therapy. And we provide that service here at ABA Speech. I don't always talk about it that often, but it's actually a huge part of what we do at ABA Speech. So I'll probably be talking about it more in 2025. So I go to the ASHA conference. It's in Seattle. I've never been to Seattle, so that was very, very exciting. My flights were pretty good, not too many delays. I get there the first day. Actually, funny though, I go to bed at 1 a.m. My son calls me at 4:30 Seattle time to let me know that he has a snow day. And that's how my first day started. I was like, well, I'm up anyway. I might as well go down to the first Starbucks. And for those of you watching on YouTube, I did get my home of the first Starbucks cup. I do have a love affair with coffee. I don't really discriminate, but I do love some Starbucks. I like Dunkin' too. So I went to Starbucks, and then I attended an amazing talk that first day. I went to a talk that was not autism related. Sometimes I try to go to different types of things just to learn from other people. And so this particular talk was from the Speech Production Lab, Jonathan Preston, Nina Benway, and Megan Leese. It was all about incorporating principles of motor learning in therapy. And it talked about speech motor chaining, which was a fascinating topic. So I do primarily serve autistic learners, but I do work 2 days a week in my kids' school as a speech language pathologist. So I see kids that are working on speech sounds, particularly R is my favorite one to try to tackle because I feel like it's challenging. And I'm always wanting to learn more. I don't always share that on Instagram because I got to keep it pretty focused on the one thing that I share about, which is autism and anybody who has complex communication delays. But that was a really amazing talk. And as I was getting ready to sit down for that talk, Carol came up to me. She is a member of the ABA Speech Connection, and she reached out and she said, are you Rose Griffin? And I said, yeah. And she let me know that she really enjoyed all of the work that I've done in the area of joint attention and naturalistic interventions, and that she listens to the show. So thank you, Carol, for listening to the show. Thank you for saying hi and coming up to me. That always kind of warms my heart. And that she's a member of our paid membership, the ABA Speech Connection, where we offer ASHA and ACEUs. So knowing that the things that I'm doing every single day here in my home office and where I tape the podcast always kind of warms my heart and reinforces me to keep going because sometimes it's hard. So that was a really amazing way to kick off the conference. It was great. Later that day, I went to some poster sessions. I went to the exhibit hall, which was really, really fun. The exhibit hall always has a special kind of vibe. It was funny. I was like exiting the one part of the exhibit hall and somebody was kind of walking fast behind me and they were like, hey, are you a speech therapist in BCBA? And funny enough, it was a board certified behavior analyst at the ASHA conference. There are people who are BCBAs who attend and duly certified folks as well. So that evening I went to a reception for CEU providers, which kind of sounds boring, but when you're providing ASHA CEUs, there's a lot of work that goes behind the scenes to set up courses, to make sure that you get all your certificates, to make sure that your data is reported correctly and all of those things. So we had a really great time talking about really nerdy topics like your LMS, your learning management system, what you're using. That was day one. On day two, I woke up and I went to some really interesting talks. I went to a talk about MTSS, which is a process where a student may not be getting IEP services, may not have gone through that process yet. And so we're serving kind of universal design, some students who need some help in those areas, which was interesting. I also went to a talk about providing group therapy for learners with complex communication needs. I think a group out of Ivy Mount School. One of the presenters was duly certified. We connected over on Instagram. Shocker, I know. I spent a lot of time over on Instagram. And it was a really awesome course about just breaking it down, how they set up their groups, how they have the participation, like who's ready to participate on that day. I thought that was a really cool. And I'm hoping to maybe get them on the podcast here in 2025. And then I went to a talk about, I believe it was a critical appraisal of gestalt language processing. That may not be the exact title of the talk, but this talk, which I thought was really wild on ASHA's part, and it was a great conference, ASHA, if anybody's listening, it was absolutely amazing, but I thought it was interesting that they put this talk in such a small room, because if you know anything about gestalt language processing, you know that it's a hot topic, people. It's a hot topic, the hottest of topics. I would think that this would be in a ballroom-sized area, but it wasn't. It was in a small little room, and I didn't get there early enough to be in the actual small little room with the speakers, so I didn't get to meet anybody in person, but I was in the overflow. And what was crazy is that when you go to these conferences that are that large, what's cool is that ASHA does a great job of saying like, okay, it's an overflow. Now these are the overflow areas, and you get a little headset. You can watch all the slides. And I've talked about the research or lack thereof robust research for gestalt language processing, which is making it really difficult for a lot of speech language pathologists and board certified behavior analysts to collaborate regarding this topic. And so I was really interested to hear more about it. They talked about there's a review that's coming out of the research that's available, or a lack thereof research. And so they just presented some of those points, discussing them, and and then at the end, they kind of shared, Dr. Howard Shane talked about some particular influencers who share about gestalt language processing and things that they've said, and maybe kind of some rebuttals. It felt like a very emotionally charged conference around that topic. I can definitely see that this topic in real life is putting us again in that kind of like us versus them mentality, which feels kind of yucky inside for me, because I like to collaborate. Let me paraphrase that. We have to collaborate. We're ethically called to collaborate. And so I can tell that this topic is really emotionally charged. And it was really something to see at the ASHA conference. I felt like you could see people, in the audience, just certain points of the talk, seeming upset about some of the information that was provided. And there were a lot of talks that were, pro gestalt language processing. I did not attend any of those talks, but I knew that they took place. And so it's something that is really kind of a buzz in the field. And we have talked about it a little bit here. I had Sari Risen on last December to talk about Gestalt language processing. That was an interesting episode. Sorry, is great information. And I have talked about it in our ethics course this year, where we talk about collaboration around the ideas of Gestalt language processing, verbal imitation, and AAC, to say that, you know what, Gestalt language processing is not going anywhere. This is a huge thing in the field of speech pathology. And we, as speech therapists and BCBAs, really need to find a way to come together to collaborate around this topic. That's kind of what that talk kind of drove home for me, is that I've already talked about the Broadhead article that gives BCBAs, at least, and I think it's a great resource for speech therapists. I've shared it in my ethics talk. How can we use Dr. Broadhead's framework for providing collaborative, ethical interventions around topics that are hard for us to collaborate around? So I'm kind of, well, come on, I'm type A, extremely type A. So, and I do believe in science. So I like Dr. Broadhead's article. He is going to be on my podcast in 2025. We already had that conversation. He's so cool and just, wow, he has done a ton of research in the field. So I really trust him. And he's just a kind person. He's very empathetic. He wants to do what's best for humanity, to be honest. And so I would love to come out with another talk, potentially in 2025, that goes through his framework of like, okay, if we don't know a lot about Gestalt language processing, what can we do to learn more about Gestalt language processing? Okay, we're going to learn about Gestalt language processing. We are going to talk about the research, or potentially the lack of research that is out there, robust research from the BCBA lens, and talk about, okay, I believe this, you believe that. How can we work together? I think what's upsetting is when I see Gestalt language processing influencers, I guess, for a lack of a better term, talking about, saying negative things about ABA, or saying that students should take a break from ABA services. I don't like that train of thought. I think that's bad. I also don't like BCBAs who are slandering people who talk about Gestalt language processing. I feel like it's just getting us back to a very us versus them mentality, which I don't like. I clinically think we all lose. It causes a lot of emotional charge in speech therapists, a lot of emotional charge for BCBAs, for parents, and the people that really suffer when we're kind of butting heads about things is we all suffer. Okay. I've seen people say, I'm taking a break from Instagram, I'm taking a break from social media. And I know that it has to do with the conflict that we feel. I feel like it's particularly palpable in the autism community. And I wish that wasn't like that. It wasn't like that when I started in the field. When I started my online business, I didn't have any hate because I was a board certified behavior analyst. If you look back and see who some of the first guests on the show were, I think you'd be completely floored and stunned, because it wouldn't be people that would say yes to an invitation to be back on the show now. There's very much a divide. So I'm all for ethically collaborating. That's a long-winded answer. But there was kind of this mentality at ASHA that felt very conflict oriented, which I didn't really appreciate because I don't really like conflict, to be honest. So there was that. Sorry, I digressed there. I guess it was a big deal for me. And then after that talk, I had lunch with a fellow SLP BCBA that I had never met before. So shout out to her. I also got to meet numerous members of the ABA Speech Connection community, which is so fun for me to meet people in real life. I met Barb, I met Ashley, et cetera, et cetera. So it's really fun for me to meet people who have been, taking courses, are in the membership, this awesome group of like-minded professionals. I'll put a link for our membership in the show notes. I do, from that place of collaboration, have a membership where we are ASHA and ACE-approved CEU providers, and we're really trying to learn together and grow. It doesn't mean that we're going to think the same way about things, and I don't think that we need to, but we do need to coexist. This is not going away. BCBAs are growing at a rapid rate, and we're not going anywhere. And I think that we really need to learn and grow together. So that was a really, really nice day. And then the end of that evening, my last night at ASHA, I got to see my friend Lisa Chatler, who's been on the show twice. She was one of my first guests. And then she was also, I believe, on episode 50. or maybe episode 100. She interviewed me one of those milestone episodes, which was really, really fun. And she just kind of took me under her wing when I went to that first ASHA conference in Los Angeles. It was really overwhelming. I was definitely a solo rider back then, did not know anybody. And so it was really cool to see her get a very important award with ASHA. And if you haven't been to the award ceremony at ASHA, that actually is a super bright spot. They talk about all these people doing amazing things for the field. I got to see the Annie Glenn Award be awarded, and it's just really inspiring. That part of the conference made me feel like crying, honestly, tears of joy, because what we do as speech therapists and BCBAs is important work. The work that you're doing every single day is important. Don't let anybody make you feel like it's not. And if you ever feel that way because you're on social media too much, just mute those accounts. You can do it. Just press that mute button or block. But all in all, ASHA was an amazing conference. I really enjoyed it. If you've never been to ASHA, it is really something to experience. I didn't do a debrief show when I first went to ABAI, which is our kind of, I feel like, equivalent for BCBAs, because I didn't have the podcast then, but I've been to that conference too. And it is great. I'm going to be doing a talk about speaking at conferences. I did 11 talks at conferences last year. And I need to take a nap, people. I need to take a nap. It was a lot, but I was really excited talking in front of a live group of people, especially like 300 to 500 people, which I got a lot of practice with this past year. It made me extremely nervous. So I wanted to kind of shift my mindset around that topic in 2024. So I really, just like in Rose Fashion, went all in on it. And I had a great time. I loved meeting everybody. I loved speaking from the stage, speaking in small little rooms that were standing room only. I spoke at Pennsylvania, Michigan, Ohio, South Carolina, Autism New Jersey, FABA, et cetera, et cetera. It was really cool. I met a lot of people along the way, and I felt more comfortable and confident sharing my message of really my mission here at ABA Speech is to help all autistic learners find a way to communicate with the world. And that kind of harnesses me and really is not just my mission here at ABA Speech, but it's really just kind of like my life's mission in this work that I do love with its many challenges, but lots of joy along the way. So that talk is going to be in our CEU library at the ABA Speech Connection. Thank you for listening to my ASHA debrief. If you have any questions about what I have shared today, please always feel free to reach out to me on Instagram, ABA Speech by Rose, or, join me in the ABA Speech Connection membership. We have a great time learning with like-minded individuals. Until next time, I'll see you soon. Thanks for listening to Autism Outreach. If you enjoyed the show today, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode full of actionable strategies you can use in your therapy room. Write a review too. That would mean so much to me. I always love hearing from you. Have a specific topic that you want included on a future show? Reach out over on Instagram, ABA Speech by Rose, or visit me at www.abaspeech.org.